So we've worked with a lot of them, 12, 13, possibly more at this point. And I wonder, how do we keep things fresh when we're working in a category? How does any agency with a category expertise keep things fresh and keep learning and keep doing different things for people who do, if you look at it on the surface, is essentially the same thing? I would say for us, there is honestly, first, there's a lot of variety within this category. And I would say that, having worked in various different categories over the course of my career, commercial real estate, healthcare are two that I've got a lot of experience in, there's always a lot of variety going on, even if it doesn't look like it on the surface. So in the investment, venture capital, growth equity, PE, private equity world, there's the investment stage is one part of the variety. There's venture capital, which are people that are investing in companies that are nascent. They haven't really started yet. They've got a great idea, or they're building a product and they need a little boost to get off the ground. And then there's growth equity, which is companies that are more established. They've been successful. They've been growing a little bit. They have been around for a little while, and they're looking to make the next leap. Maybe they want to acquire another company. Maybe they want to spin off part of their product line and grow it in another direction. There's various different things they can do. And then there's private equity, which is a whole other kind of growth or longer term kind of, further stage investment. And there's all kinds of other offshoots like search funds, which is basically like they train up MBAs to take over companies. And we've worked with one of those. That's one big difference. There's a lot of different story, a lot of different audiences there, and a lot of different messages that have to be conveyed just based on the type of investment you're talking about. Secondly, and this is one that I find really fascinating, there's East Coast versus West Coast investing. There's the San Francisco, the Menlo Parks. They have one sort of vibe about them. A lot of them are in the venture stage or in sort of the early stage, the seed stage. They are they're more kind of flashy. They're more marketing-y. They're more maverick, and they tend to be a little bolder. And that is because they're capturing the attention of people who are also sort of nascent in what they're doing. They're having to make a big splash and say, hey, work with me as you are working on yourself. Then there's East Coast, which tends to be a little more corporate, a little more finance industry based. The private equity and the growth firms tend to be over there. They are a little more subdued. They have been around a lot longer. They invest much, much, much larger amounts of money in companies that are already big or growing. And so they have a whole different aesthetic. They are much more, I wouldn't say they're not necessarily corporate, but more about tradition and more about process and more about being seen as trustworthy and credible, whereas the other guys on the kind of early stage are more about being seen as interesting and forward thinking and a little bit more flashy, I guess. Then there's focus. Each of these kinds of firms have a different focus. They focus on a different sector or industry. Technology, healthcare technology is another one, consumer products, you name it. There is a firm out there that is lasering in on one type of product or one type of industry to figure out like what's the next big thing going to be, what's the thing that we can help grow. And then simply like literally in any industry I've ever worked in, no two entities are alike. It's about digging in and pulling out that story and saying like, what is it that really makes you guys different? Even though you may do the same kind of investing, there are different personalities in the room, there's different expertise, there's different focus, there's a different core that keeps you all together. And all those differences, they let us kind of leverage our category expertise with all this exposure and all this experience. We don't have to start from zero every time, which is what having a category expertise is nice for, but you don't want to let that get stale. We can get right to the reason that that's great. And we have all of that ramp up already, and we don't have to know the terminology, and we don't need to know about, learn about the processes or the trends even from zero, is that we can go right to the heart of the matter really quickly. We can say, look, we understand your industry. You don't have to take 2 months to understand what it is that you do. We know what you do. We want to know how you do it different. We want to know how you connect with your audience. We want to know what makes it that other people really want to choose you to go with other than somebody else. And so that is how we keep it fresh. We also like to do something which I would call idea first over thing first thinking. And that is just taking, that brand idea or that core thing. Let's say it's an investment firm that is, particularly focused on healthcare technology, for instance, and saying, okay, this is part of their DNA. What can we, instead of saying, okay, well, you need a website. And what is a website? A website is a homepage, and it's got some stuff on it, and it's got some wireframes, and it's got some other pages, and they're usually X, Y, and Z. We want to think, instead of like thing first, deliverable first, let's think idea first. What can we do with that thought that you are experts in healthcare technology, and say yes, and what can we do to highlight that? How can we start from there instead of starting from you need a website?